So we've looked at the slope-intercept form. We spent quite a bit of time talking about that. Again, that is the form y equals mx plus b, and we've seen how valuable it is to graph a line because it tells you the slope and it tells you the y-intercept. And we've also seen that the slope tells us the rate of change, and so if we're talking about a practical example, and we looked at some yesterday where it might have told us how the profit was increasing for every ticket sold. That was one application of slope. And the y-intercept also told us the initial amount. Okay? So we're going to look at another form of a line called the general form. And today we're going to look at converting a linear equation to general form. We'll start talking about the intercepts of a graph and how we can use those to graph a line. We'll relate the intercepts of a graph to a situation and then look at some problems as well. So on the left, on the next page, the general form of a line is the form ax plus by plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are real numbers and a and b are both non-zero. By convention, a is a whole number and it'll always be positive. So basically, you've got everything on one side equal to 0 on the other, and you can't have any fractions or decimals. That's what general form is. Okay, slope-intercept form, you had y by itself on one side, everything else on the other. And we often did have a fraction for the slope. That was slope-intercept form, though. This is general form. So again, for general form, everything on one side equals 0 on the other, no fractions or decimals, and you want a, which is the number in front of x, to be positive. Those are the three things. Everything on one side equal to 0 on the other, no fractions or decimals, a is positive. A is the number in front of x. And the x-intercept of a graph is where the graph crosses the x-axis. Because it's a point on the x-axis, the y value will always be 0 because you don't go up or down to get there. You just go left or right on the x-axis. And so we're going to see how you can find the x-intercept for a graph, and then we'll also see how you find the y-intercept. So again, the general form is the form ax plus by plus c equals 0. Everything on one side equal to 0 on the other. No fractions or decimals, and a is positive. You can convert a linear equation from one form to another by applying the rules of algebra. Again, the x-intercept is the x-coordinate of the point where the line crosses the x-axis. It is where y is 0. The y-intercept is the y-coordinate of the point where the line crosses the y-axis. That is where x equals 0. So there's an example of a line that shows where the x-intercept is at 1, 0 and the y-intercept 0, 2. Okay, so again, the x-intercept is always where y is 0 because you don't go up or down to get there. That is the reason that the y value is 0. And the y-intercept is where x is 0 because you don't go left or right to get there. You just go, in this case, up 2 units on the y-axis to see where the graph crosses the y-axis. So we're going to be looking at two different things. The first thing, general form, which is the form ax plus by plus c equals 0. So remember, everything on one side equal to 0 on the other, no fractions or decimals, and you want the a value, the number in front of x, to be positive. So I'm going to start this by getting rid of the denominator. Okay, we have a denominator of 3 in this equation. So to get rid of it, we multiply all the terms by the common denominator of 3. So that's what this shows. I'm multiplying all 3 terms by 3. And the reason this works is because that middle term, the term after the equal sign, the 3's cancel. 3 divided by 3 is 1. They cancel. So now we no longer have a denominator. If I write what we have left, we have 3y equals We have negative 2 times x, so that's negative 2x plus 6 times 3 is 18. So we got rid of the fraction part. But remember, for general form, again, it's ax plus by plus c equals 0. Everything on one side equal to 0 on the other. But we want the x term to be positive, and right now it's negative. So I would add 2x to both sides, and I would subtract 18 from both sides. And now we have the equation in general form. Notice that the x term, not only is it positive, but it always comes first. So on the left side, I'll have a positive 2x, a positive 3y because the y term is second, and then my constant is negative 18. Now it is written in general form. It is the same equation, it's just in a different form. Instead of slope-intercept form, it is general form. So we'll do the same thing for that next one. To write it in general form, there's 3 things you need to have. No fractions or decimals, everything on one side equal to 0 on the other, and the x term must be positive. We have a fraction here. We have a denominator of 4. So we start by multiplying every term by 4. So that's what that shows, multiplying all 3 terms by 4. And the reason we do that is because that middle term, the term after the equal sign, the 4's cancel. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So we have 4y equals 3x minus 8. And in this case, the x term is positive. So we're going to keep the 3x on the right side. We're going to keep the minus 8 on the right side. I'm going to move the y term over by subtracting 4y from both sides. And remember that the general form, the order is the x term first, then the y term, then the constant equals 0. So you can write it like that. It's the same thing as 3x minus 4y minus 8 equals 0. Same thing. So there's the equation in general form. Everything on one side equals 0 on the other. No fractions or decimals. X term positive. And also remember the order. X first, then y, then the constant. So we want to do the same thing for all of these. Express each in general form. So that first one, there are no fractions. So the first step is already done for us. Also, the x term is positive. So all we have to do for this one is bring the y term over to the other side by subtracting it from both sides. That'll leave us with 0 on the left. On the right, excuse me, x term first, then the y term, then the constant equals 0. That's the same thing as 3x minus y minus 2 equals 0. Same thing. There's the equation in general form. Question B, we have a denominator. We have a fraction. We need to get rid of the denominator of 4, which we would do by multiplying all of the terms by 4. All of the terms get multiplied by 4. So that term to the right of the equal sign, 4 divided by 4 cancels. That is the reason that we multiplied everything by 4. So that step would happen. We got rid of the denominator. So what do we have left? We have 4y on the left equals negative 3 times x minus 8. Because you have to multiply that last term, the minus 2, by 4 as well. So we got rid of the fraction. Now we need everything on one side equal to the other, and the x term must be positive. Right now, on the right side, it's negative. So we're going to add the 3x to both sides. and we're going to add the 8 to both sides. So on the left side, the 3x is now positive. The 4y was positive, so that's not going to change because we didn't move it. And the 8 is also positive. On the right side, everything cancels. You're left with 0. There's the equation in general form. Okay? Question C. We have a denominator there. That last term has a denominator of 6. So we will start by multiplying all of the terms by 6. And the reason this works is because that last term, 6 divided by 6, cancels. We've gotten rid of the denominator. If we multiply out what's left, we'll have 6y on the left equals negative 6x plus 5 on the right. So we got rid of the fraction. Now we have to get everything together on one side, and because the 6x is negative on the right, we need to move it over to the left by adding 6x to both sides, as well as subtracting 5 from both sides. So the 6x is positive on the left. The 6y didn't move, so it stays positive. The 5 becomes a minus 5 because we subtracted it from both sides. So there's that equation in general form. Now for question D, there are 2 denominators. We haven't seen one like this before. So what we do in this case is we multiply everything by the common denominator, which would be 6. Right? It's the least common multiple of both denominators. So we're going to multiply everything by 6. So that shows multiplying, everything by 6. And the reason this works is because 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we have left 6y on the left equaling, we have this 2 times that 2, which is 4x, plus 1 times 3. So I got rid of the denominators. Now I need to put everything on one side equal to 0 on the other. Because the x term is positive, I'm going to leave the 4x and the 3 on the right. I'm going to bring the 6y over by subtracting it from both sides. So that leaves me with 0 on the left equaling. Remember the order. X term first, then the y term, which is negative, then the plus 3. So there's the equation in general form. Okay, so now switch gears a little bit. We introduced what the intercepts were. This is another tool that you can use to graph a line. You only actually need 2 points to graph a line. If you find the x-intercept, that's 1 point, and then find the y-intercept, that's a second point. That's all you really need to graph a line. So we need to find them both. And we saw at the start that the x-intercept, it's a point somewhere on the x-axis. Somewhere on the x-axis, so you don't go up or down to get there. You just go left or right. Because you don't go up or down, that is the reason that is where the y value is 0. The x-intercept is where y equals 0. So if you take the equation and you let y equals 0, 6 times 0 is 0. That term disappears. You're going to get 3x plus 0, which is just 3x. So when you let y equal 0, that term disappears. Because 6 times 0 is 0, and 3x plus 0 is still the 3x. And so now we just solve for x by adding the 18 to both sides, and then dividing both sides by 3, x equals 6. And remember, that was where y equals 0, so that is the point 6 comma 0. That is the x-intercept, where the graph crosses the x-axis. So we can put a point there on the graph at the point 6 comma 0. The y-intercept, that'll give us our second point. That's where the graph crosses the y-axis. The y-axis is the one that is vertical. To get to anywhere on the y-axis, you don't go left or right. You just go up or down. Because you don't go left or right, that means that the x value is 0. Any point on the y-axis will be 0 comma something, because you don't go left or right. So we can find the y-intercept by letting x equals 0 in the equation. Three times 0 is 0. 0 plus 6y is just 6y. When you let x equal 0, essentially the x term disappears. It's gone. So now we just need to find out what y is by adding 18 to both sides and then dividing by 6. You'll get y equaling 3, which means it's the point 0 comma 3. We let x equal 0. The value of x is 0. We found the y value is 3, so that's the point 0 comma 3, which is right there. Again, you only need 2 points to draw a line. So you can draw a line through those 2 points, and we have our line. Remember, lines always have arrows on both ends because they continue in those same directions forever. The x-intercept is always where y is 0. The y-intercept is always where x equals 0. So for question B, we'll do it the same way. We want to graph it by finding the intercepts. It doesn't matter which one you do first. Normally I start with the x-intercept, but you could start with the y-intercept first. That doesn't matter. But the x-intercept is where the other variable y equals 0. And 12 times 0 is 0. Essentially, that term just disappears because you're going to have 5x take away 0, which is 5x. And now we need to solve for x. We'll subtract the 24 from both sides, so it becomes negative 24 on the other side. Then we'll divide both sides by 5, and x will equal negative 4.8. When you divide negative 24 by 5, you'll get negative 4.8. So that's the x value when y is 0. So that's the coordinates of that point, negative 4.8 comma 0. So we're going to kind of estimate where negative 4.8 is on the x-axis. So that's our x-intercept. Our y-intercept is where x equals 0. So it'll be 5 times 0 minus 12y plus 24 equals 0. 5 times 0 is 0. Again, that term disappears. 0 take away 12y is minus 12y. We'll add the 12y to both sides, which makes it positive over on the right side. And then when we divide both sides by 12, y will equal positive 2. Remember, that was where x was 0, we found that y is 2, so that is the point 0, comma 2. That gives us 2 points. We can now draw our line going through those 2 points. And we always put arrows on the ends because the line goes forever in both directions. If it's a line, the slope is constant. So it goes forever in both directions. And these are all lines because there's no powers. Remember, we talked about that. No powers on the variables means that they are linear. So, I mean, there's a few more with changing to general form. I don't think we need to do them all, but let's skip down and do the last two. So looking at y equals 2/3 x minus 1/6. So you have two fractions here, two denominators of 3 and 6. Remember, we multiply all the terms by the common denominator, which would be 6. 3 divides into 6 evenly. So the least common multiple of 3 and 6 is 6. So I'm multiplying all of the terms by 6. And the reason this works is because 6 divided by 3 is 2. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So we're left with 6y equaling 2 times 2 is 4x minus 1 times 1. By multiplying all three terms by the common denominator, we got rid of our denominators. But we're still not done because general form has everything on one side equal to 0 on the other, and the x term must be positive, which it is right now. So because of that, I'm going to move the 6y over by subtracting it from both sides. That'll give us 0 on the left. The 4x is our first term. The y term is the next thing we write, which is a minus 6y, and then we have the minus 1, which is the same thing as 4x minus 6y minus 1 equals 0. So the next one, we have decimals. We can't have any fractions or decimals, so we need to get rid of the decimal. So the first decimal has 2 decimal points. The second one only has 1. So to get rid of all of them, we're going to have to multiply everything by 100 because there's 2 zeros to get rid of 2 decimal places. So again, I'm going to have 100 times 0.75x plus 100 times 0.2. So 100y will equal 100 times 0.75x is 75x plus, and 100 times 0.2 is 20. Now we've gotten rid of the decimals. And because the x term is positive, we're going to leave it on the right. We're going to bring the y term over by subtracting 100y from both sides. So we've got 75x as positive. The 100y is a minus. The plus 20 stays the same because it didn't move sides. And so there's the equation in general form. Okay? So this next one, we want to graph it by finding the x and y intercepts. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so the assignment is in the package here. No, it's not. So I will put it on Google Classroom what the assignment is, okay? So I want you to start that one on your own. You need to find the x and the y intercepts, and then we'll check it. So the x-intercept is where y equals 0. So you're going to let y equal 0 in the equation. And essentially that term disappears. 3 times 0 is 0. 2x take away 0 is 2x. So now you're working with 2x minus 6 equals 0 by adding 6 to both sides and then dividing by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. X is 3 when y is 0, so that's the point 3 comma 0. Righty, how do we find the y-intercept? Can you help her, Declan? Say again. You are going to let x equal 0. Yep. So to find the x-intercept, it's always the other letter y, which is 0. To find the y-intercept, it's always the other letter x, which is 0. So essentially that term just will disappear because 0 times 2 is 0. 0 take away 3y is minus 3y. Yes, Keen? I added 6 to both sides. That's why it became positive on the other side of the equals. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to add 3y to both sides. I don't have to. I could bring the 6 over. It doesn't matter. But that leaves me with negative 6 on the left equaling 3y on the right. And then when you divide both sides by 3, negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. That's what y is, and we found it by letting x equal 0. So it's the point 0, comma, negative 2. So the line will go through those 2 points. Looks something like that. And again, we always have arrows on the ends of our lines because it goes forever in that direction, in that pattern. Do we need to do one more, or you think you guys got this? Think you're okay? Okay. So what you can work on for practice is page 365, questions 2 and 3, A through F. I will post the solutions to this on Google Classroom so you can check your answers. Again, I encourage you to do this though, because the practice will be helpful when it comes time to writing any quizzes or tests for this stuff. And we probably will have a quiz, but it won't be till after Easter now. Okay? So do the practice. It's going to be helpful. Yeah. Make sure you sign out here.